Hi, this is Eric Olson from Helps. The title of this video is How Long Will It Take for My Home to Be Foreclosed? And what qualifies me to give you an answer on that? Well, I've been an attorney for 42 years, probably filed 30,000 bankruptcies thereabouts before I started Helps. What we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons who have debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop debt collector harassment. And we also educate them how to maintain their financial independence. And a client called yesterday, and her husband had passed away. And I had her call back today with her daughter. And I just got off the phone with them a little bit ago. And because of decreased income and husband passing away, they're not going to be able to, she's not going to be able to afford to keep the home. And I asked, well, how much do you owe on the home? And they gave me the number and how much is the home worth. They had talked to a realtor and they said, well, if we sell the home, Eric, Mr. Olson, whatever, we may not come out with anything, or we're going to break even. And then I said, well, do you have a place to move to? Do you know where you want to go? And they said, no, not really. And I said, would you like to stay in the home? And they said, yeah. And so I told them something I've told a lot of people over the years. If you've got a home and you can't afford the payment, it's going to go back. You can stay in the home while it's going through foreclosure. And the question is, how, there's a lot of questions, but one of them is, well, how long can you stay in the home? Okay. And well, my experience is if the home is foreclosed on in less than a year, that's really fast. Usually it's a lot longer than that. Now, if it's a VA loan, it could be a lot longer than that. Now, there's different types of foreclosures. It's not an exact science, but I would generally tell people that they would normally be able to stay in the home for at least a year and likely longer. And then, a lot of states have programs, in fact, where you can maybe stall off the foreclosure a little bit, say, try to make the payment or whatever, and you could choose to do that. So I'm talking about people that definitely going to leave the home. They can't afford the payment. They don't want to try to keep it. But it would be nice if they could stay there for longer to save up money so that they can move, for example. And I remember years ago, I talked to a banker that was involved in the foreclosure process. And I remember he told me something he said, Eric, we'd much rather someone stay in a home while it's going through foreclosure than for them to leave the home and walk out and leave it abandoned. When the home is left vacant, then it can be vandalized, things can happen, the heat can be turned off, can freeze, the pipes can burst, someone could break in, all kinds of things. So there's nothing wrong with you staying in the home while it's going through foreclosure. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. You don't have to pay the insurance. You're obviously not going to pay the house payment. You have to pay the utilities to keep them on, but you could save up some money to be able to move with. So how long can you stay in the home? Well, I can't give you an exact answer. I can just tell you my experience is that minimum a year, likely more like as an average a year and a half at least, maybe 2 years. I remember a guy that was in his home for over 9 years. Okay, so I've lived through a few recessions in my time. The 2008 hit and all these foreclosures happened. It was a mess. The banks didn't want to foreclose on homes. It made when they foreclosed, they had to write it off, and it made their books look bad. So they did everything they could to try to keep people in their homes. And that's happened over the years. And, we may be going into another recession here. Who knows? Prices may have flattened out a little bit on houses here. We don't know what the future is going to hold. But in your situation, if you can't afford the house payment and there's no equity in the home or minimal equity, then you could choose to stay in the home. Now, it can be a balancing act. So let's say, for example, if you're going to sell the home, you're going to pocket $20,000. Okay, that might sound good to you, But if you were going to move, and it was going to cost you $1,000 to rent, then by staying in the home for a year and a half to 2 years, that's going to equal $20,000. So you can see how you can kind of do the math to figure, does it make sense for me to sell the home or to try to stay here? And generally, if you sell the home, you may not make as much money as you think you are going to make. Now, another factor that plays in here is some people, they just want to get out of the home. You don't have to stay in the home. So you can leave, you know, if you're not going to, if you don't want, you don't have to try to stay in the home for a long time. You don't want to. Sometimes people will call and they'll say, and they'll have a really good opportunity to live, and I'll, you know, to move somewhere. I say, well, fine, just move there. You don't have to stay in the home. But if you don't have a place to go and it works out for you to stay in the home while it's going through foreclosure, do that. So usually you're going to find maybe 4 months before they're even going to start threatening a foreclosure. And then after that, it's going to be a while after that. I think the soonest a foreclosure could happen would be 8 or 9 months, and that would shock me in a typical case. Usually it's longer than that, minimum of a year, more likely 18 months or longer. But once again, you know, each case is different, and there's no way of predicting what it would be for you once you knew the facts. But there's other things that play into it. So that's something good to know, is that you can stay in the home while it's going through foreclosure, and you're generally going to have a lot of warning to know when you're going to have to leave the home. Okay, so let's say the foreclosure happens. Sometimes there's a redemption period, and they let you stay during that period. You know, it depends on the state law. Or if you're in there and everything is run up, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to have to file a motion. They're going to have to evict you, and that's going to take usually 30 to 60 days for that process to go through. So you're going to have plenty of warning, and hopefully while you're in the home not making house payments, you've saved up money to pay rent, to move. Now, if this is your first time looking at this video and you're a senior or disabled person, you need to know a little bit about HELPS. And what we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop collector harassment. Our most important message is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits is protected by federal law. It can't be garnished or taken from you. And so you don't need to use that money to pay debt you can't afford to pay. Okay, so if you're in a financial quandary and you've got a bunch of credit card debt, you could stop paying that credit card debt. And if they were to sue you and get a judgment, they can't take your income, that protected income that's protected by federal and state laws. And if you don't want to be bothered by creditors, you know that's what HELPS does, is we represent seniors under what's called a law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, so they don't have to deal with debt collectors anymore. If a person's represented by an attorney, collectors have to leave them alone. They can no longer call or send demand letters in it anymore. And then we're always there to talk to our clients, help them understand why they're going to be okay, assure them, educate them, and that's why I'm doing this video. So if you find yourself in a position and you have a home that has no equity, which means if you sold it and there wouldn't be enough money to pay you anything, or it wouldn't be a whole lot, then yeah, you don't have to put the home for sale. You could still stay there while it's going for foreclosure, and probably stay there for a fair amount of time. Okay, and gives you a chance to save up that money so you have money to move. So hopefully this has been helpful. I did a video on this 5 years ago, and it was titled "How Long Can I Stay in the Home?" and didn't have that many views, but I think it may be the title. So, how long can I stay in the home while it's going through foreclosure? And if you have any questions, give us a call. You can like this video. You can subscribe to HELP's YouTube channel, and you can call us toll free with questions you have. 855-HELPS-US, 855-503-8877. And Call if you have any questions. Have a great day.